Picture this. It's day 15. You just picked up the hit game Don't Starve, and you're winding down from a hard day of collecting grass and twigs. The night comes and it is scary, but you've been through this before. You know that the night monster won't come near you as long as your fire stays lit. However, your sense of security changes to dread as you hear a blood-curdling noise. You hear leaves shuffling. Panic fills the air around you. You have nowhere to go. With darkness all around you, you hug close to your fire, when out of that very same darkness, a strange figure appears. At first, you think it's human, but something's very, very wrong. Not only is its body disheveled and grotesque, but it also seems to be part owl. But none of this matters now because you just made a fatal mistake. You looked at it too long. You hear one final shriek, your fire goes out, and before you know it, your face is gone. You just had an encounter with the Screecher. Relax, relax. The Screecher isn't actually a part of vanilla Don't Starve or Don't Starve Together. But it's definitely not just a mere creepypasta. Hello, I'm your host, Polarlotus, and if you've seen any of my other videos, you would know that I love doing deep dives into this lovely little game known as Don't Starve. And for this Halloween, we are going to do a deep dive on Klei's own horrific creation to their very own game, the Screecher. We will be covering how you can meet this beast face to face in-game, the lore behind it, and what it could mean for the constant going forward. But first, how do you encounter the Screecher? Well, you will need to own a copy of Don't Starve on a PC. Then simply click on your mods page. The Screecher is always downloaded and ready to scare you. Then all you have to do is enable it and restart your game, and wow. This is a lot scarier than Don't Starve's regular menu theme. No fun harpsichord music, no pig mayor, just some spooky ambient noises and a strange background. From here we have a few choices, but of course the one we want to choose is Begin. Now, let's go over the gameplay and story of this short little horrific experience. Pilot Creek, January 1986. After a short loading screen, we begin our adventure with a blood-curdling screech. And our protagonist, Bill, wondering what that sound was and saying he should go check it out. Horrible survival skills, by the way. Searching our campsite, we immediately find a note left by someone named Sarah. It reads, "I can't wait here anymore. I'm going to try to call the helicopter. I left my flashlight for you. See you soon, Sarah." We then search a duffel bag and find some batteries, and finally in a box we find the single most important item in this entire story, the flashlight. This prevents us from dying to the night monster because don't forget we are still within the constant, or so it seems. Right off the bat, you can tell that this mod is scary. You have to follow a path with absolutely no peripheral vision and only a road to guide you. After a bit of walking, we come across our first strange encounter. A woman crying in the fetal position. We get closer to investigate and... Interesting. Inside of her backpack, we find a note that reads, January 9th. The helicopter just dropped us off. This place is amazing. And the tour guide seems really nice. It is so peaceful out here. No one around for miles. Ominous for sure, but seemingly innocent. Then it's back to the road until we reach another campfire where we find a battery, and most importantly, a map. This map allows us to not only navigate this strange land of Pilot Creek, but also shows us that this truly is within the constant. Next up, we find a small campsite with a sobbing man. Youch! That guy's face was entirely gone. But it seems to be a harmless jump scare. No danger yet, but by now we certainly feel like we are in danger. We find here another note that reads, January 12th. Something rummaged our camp last night. Things are getting weird. I haven't seen the Brazilian couple in days. It's so cold. Bill is trying to fix the generator. Our first clue, well, besides the faceless man sitting beside us, that something might be wrong within these woods. But hey, it could just be a bear or something, right? Also, we found some batteries which allow us to continue onward into the darkness. Our next point of interest is a strange scene. An abandoned jacket and what looks to be some sort of public faucet. The jacket holds another note that reads, Bill went looking for the Brazilian couple. He still hasn't come back. I'm getting really scared. There's something out there in the woods. We need to get out of here. I must find the guide. Okay, definitely more ominous, but still no signs of foul play yet. I mean, there's generally always something in the woods, you know, animals and all. We could turn the faucet on, but that does nothing. Onwards we go. Finally, we come across a grisly scene. Definitely not something you would want to come across in the middle of the woods, that's for sure. We light the fire and begin searching around when we find... Okay, now we know that something's not right. What was that thing and what was it doing to that person? Upon closer inspection, we can see that not only is this the woman we saw near the beginning, but she's now also missing her entire face, much like the man that we came across. Now we know that it's not just some animal. We are being hunted by some strange owl thing. The notes that we find now begin to get more and more cryptic, with this one simply reading, "Don't look at it," in what we can only presume is red wine, obviously. At this point, the hunt is on. Every corner, everywhere we look, the creature is there. And if you stare too long, it will attack you. Along the trail, we come across 2 more corpses, yet another one missing a face, and the next one being face down, but it's safe to presume she's suffered the same fate. Whatever this thing is, it's really enjoying taking people's faces off. After finding another faceless corpse, we find a note that reads emergency frequency 1640.4 AM. Important information, great. We also find the tour guide's duffel bag, which holds the helicopter manifest. Now, this is very interesting because this is a lot of people. How did they even get into the Constant? Why is there a helicopter? And what is this thing chasing us? Is it feeding on these people, or is something more sinister happening? Well, my friends, our stay here is almost over and we can begin theorizing. But for now, we must push onwards. We finally come across what seems to be a radio. While I was rudely interrupted by the creature, if you paid attention to the words there, safety was coming to us, which was great. In the duffel bag, we find a very ominous sketch depicting this strange entity in a red-skied forest. This was also our final note. It's finally almost over. We can turn on the generator, get to the helicopter, and leave this place for good, right? Not all stories have happy endings, and Bill's certainly was no exception. This was the entirety of the Screecher mod, which is, funny enough, an official mod created by Klei themselves. But now, it's time for us to dissect this strange little event and see what exactly it truly means. Okay, so first up, something interesting to note about this mod is that each run is randomized. If you play, not only will your path look different than mine, but your notes will also sometimes look different. The only guaranteed notes are Sarah's flashlight note and the beginning hunt note. There are a few other notes that we will go over now that I didn't get on my run. There are 6 in total that I did not get, but 2 of them are blank notes and 1 is simply telling you to use your flashlight. The other 3, however, are quite important, and are ones we will be going over now. The first note that we didn't get reads, "Mom, there are only a few of us left. We could not find the missing children, but I still hear them out there. Pray for us. I love you." With a missing signature. That's pretty chilling. The next note that we didn't find reads, "I saw something. It was tall and hairy. It had big round eyes. It disappeared in a second. It is still out there. Before Chris died, he called it an owl, but it is something else. I'm safe near the fire. It does not bother me here." Okay, this actually helps the speculations a ton. Could the Screecher be this Constant's version of the night monster? Well, we still have one more note to read. And that note is the rescue note. And this note shows us something sort of creepy. First off, we learn of more names here. Adam, Lee, Kendall, Morrow, Donald, Christine, and Jose are among the few that survived the dreaded event. But things get interesting when you look at the crossed off names. Sarah, Greg, Bill, who is our character, Mike, Chris, and Dee are considered dead, but Reen and Ryan are considered monsters. So somehow the Screecher is converting others into more Screechers. Also, it's funny that they just assumed we were dead, but it was fair judging by what we were up against. And in the end, they did end up being right, so Reen and Ryan were converted into Screechers. But how? Well, the Screecher in my opinion shares many characteristics with something from Algonquian folklore, the Wendigo, which is meant to be a malevolent spirit that overtakes its hosts and converts them into hybrid humanoid monsters, with an insatiable appetite for, you guessed it, human flesh. Not only is this appetite confirmed as we see the Screecher taking a slight snack on that one lady's face, the early iteration of Algonquian language referred to this creature as a wee tekawa, which may have meant owl. Seems familiar, right? So what does this mean the Screecher truly is? Well, we can see that there are not one, not two, but many Screechers by the end of the mod. We also know that this mod takes place within the constant. Now, my theory here is going to heavily rely on the whole multiverse theory that I came up with in my Analyzing the Constant video, which, if you want to watch that, it will be linked in the description below, but I actually think this is another version of the constant entirely, rather than the one we know and love. But how? Well, first off, Charlie is non-existent in this version of the constant. We can prove this by succumbing to the darkness in the mod. No signature Charlie noises, no slashing, just instant game over. So, what is the Night Monster? Well, I think that this death screen could be our character being taken over by the Wendigo spirit. It's instant, there's no struggle to be heard, and we know that if our main character was attacked, we would probably hear the Screecher moving in, and possibly some slashing, as proven by what happens if we are actually attacked and killed by a Screecher. So, yeah, I don't think this is our character actually dying, rather succumbing to this version of the constant's Night Monster, which just so happens to be an omnipotent evil spirit. Perhaps darkness here isn't just darkness. Perhaps darkness is the spirit. This version of the constant might also be permanently dark, as referenced by the many characters wondering why the darkness is, well, so dark. Funny enough, this would also explain the strange woman. Remember, we saw her rocking in the fetal position, and once approached, she will flee from the light. Perhaps she was in the process of becoming a Screecher, but we caught her before the spirit could fully take her. And she was only afraid of the light. Unfortunately for her, she must have run into a full-fledged Screecher before her transformation was complete, as we find her in the process of becoming faceless later on down the road. Okay, that's cool and all, but how did these characters get trapped in the constant? There's no Maxwell here to lure them in like our characters, so why exactly are they here? Well, all of these survivors are seemingly connected to each other. All of them expected to be on some kind of tour trip together to a place called Pilot Creek. And as we know thanks to lore now, the constant isn't just its own isolated place. It can and will leak into the real world, or the other universe that most people are from, if given the chance. Wagstaff proved this is possible in his short. Perhaps this unfortunate tour group ended up coming into contact with some sort of rift in reality, bringing them to this hellish version of the constant where this evil spirit existed. I mean, let's be honest, the constant that our characters live in may be awful, but at least they didn't end up here. Imagine sending one of your friends out to grab some supplies, and they come back as a grotesque monster ready to bite your face off. It's rough, and honestly I'm glad Klei gave this mod some speculative lore, because it's genuinely really cool to think about. So the next time you get slashed by Charlie in the dark and lose all of your items, remember, your fate could have been much, much worse.